Hi, I'm Nicole, and this is my dad, Nick.
This father and daughter duo are currently rebuilding an old sailboat. The boat is a 1983 Trans World 41-foot ketch named Bob. Yep, you got it, Bob. Bob is in a slip in the beautiful Deltaville, Virginia. That's Buddy. He's an Australian cattle dog. He goes everywhere with us. That's Nicole. She's flying the drone. And over there behind the mast, well, that's Dad, and his name is Nick. We are Saddles and Sails, and we really appreciate you watching our show.
This episode this week is going to be tallying up some stuff that I've done. I did put in composting toilets, and I did the bilge project, which is probably very basic for a lot of you serious sailors. So the most interesting part of this might be my blundering and absolutely covered in grease. It was so disgusting. Oil, because there was oil, and a graveyard of old bilge pumps down in the bilge. So, welcome to book 2. Let's do book 2. I like book 2. And thank you again for subscribing. Let's go on down to the bilge. You're coming with me. And we're gonna get dirty. I mean, I don't take that the way it sounded. We're gonna get messy. Yeah, messy. Okay. Peace out, y'all. Bye. Before we go into the bilge, let's go back and check out some highlights from season 1. Season 1 was pretty exciting. We got the boat in October, and shortly thereafter we took it to Deltaville, Virginia on Chesapeake Bay for a full refit. We started the refit with the bowsprit, pulpit, and platform. The bowsprit had been painted red and was rotten. The platform was teak and had a little bit of rot, and the pulpit rails were completely gone. They had been smashed and they had to be remade. Bowsprit work was completed by Howdy Bailey Yacht Services in Norfolk, Virginia, and DYC in Deltaville, Virginia installed it.
Scotty, we need more speed. I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. She can't take any more. Damn. Chekhov, reroute auxiliary power to the helm.
You gotta admit, no boat refit project would be complete without a brand new engine. This is not it. This is the old Ford Lehman Brothers engine, 60 horsepower, that somebody had spray painted gold, I think in an effort to pass it off as a new engine. It had an overheating problem and we couldn't find parts, so you got it, Dad wanted something new. Here it is, the Yanmar 80 horsepower common rail diesel with push button start, which I was quite excited about because I'm not super good at keeping track of my keys. Anyway, if you keep watching, you'll see how it got installed. One of my favorite parts about this whole process was watching that engine swinging along and dropping down into the boat. I just was so scared something was gonna snap and break and it would go crashing through the floor, but it all turned out and it dropped into place quite nicely, actually.
One eternity later.
Better tie off my hand. You push the power button. Then you push and hold the start. Boom, a big shout out to Deltaville Yachting Center for an awesome installation of our engine.
Like, stop whining. I'm not whining, I'm complaining. You guys did the Caribbean. I mean, same parts with Mick and Cher, some kind of Club Med thing, not scrubbing decks in the SS Minnow.
Let's face it, no refit project is complete unless you've sanded so much you cannot see.
We're not even close to being done sanding. This is just a Braveheart moment. And with all the political things going on around the world, I just thought I'd be like, take this opportunity to be like, freedom! It's such a dork.
But they'll never take our freedom!
Now that we are done sanding, it's time to do the rest of the bottom job, which is actually a lot of steps.
Baby steps? It means setting small, reasonable goals for yourself, one day at a time. One tiny step at a time.
Baby steps.
And here we are. Baby step 1, mixing the barrier coat. So, whenever you sand your boat down, this light blue or the gel coat is exposed, you have to repaint it. We rolled out the third and final coat, just in case we missed a spot. Now that we're done with the barrier coat, it's time to actually paint Bob. Bottom paint is put on in 3 layers. So this is the second or middle coat of the 3-coat process. And here we are, the last and final coat, the outside coat, which is a copper-infused ablative bottom paint. And now we baby step through the waterline.
Baby steps. Baby steps through the office. Baby steps out the door. It works. One little step at a time, and I can do anything. Baby steps.
So coming down to the stretch, we're now doing the water line.
And I couldn't do the paint, the tape. Like you can do a tape for the water line, but I don't have enough confidence in my ability to tape to do that. So we opted to paint on the water line instead of use the little pinstripe tapes that you can get at West Marine. And frankly, they didn't have any big enough either. That was the other part. So. Now I could focus on the sea serpent or dragon. I used a gold fleck paint, not actual gold flecks, because the angle meant that they just weren't sticking right even with the glue. So I found this really, really nice paint, and the finished result was just lovely. So I had no complaints, and it still looks great. Let's take a minute and look at that black safety netting.
Baby steps, get out of bus. Baby steps, get out of bus.
While the guys were on the mast putting in the electronics, I decided to start rolling out the netting and fixing it to the safety cable. I ended up using parachute cord wrapped around the safety line and the stanchions. Who remembers when Dad accidentally put water in a fuel tank and we discovered that we did in fact need new fuel tanks?
No. That was not smart. That was not smart.
Well, it turns out that Dad's oops was a good thing. After pumping water out of the fuel tanks, we never did start the engine with that. Dad caught it before then. We discovered sediment, a lot of thick sediment. And the problem is that that sediment is in the bottom of the tank. So in rough weather, it's going to get loosened up. And then, yes, we have filters, but eventually choke up and kill the engine in probably the most critical time ever. So, long story short, new fuel tanks. New fuel tanks seemed like a really big project, So I talked to Howdy, and he was like, nah, this is no big deal. Larry can do it, because Larry can do anything. So they made the new tanks out of stainless steel. They put level monitors on there, and those monitors are also connected to the B&G chart plotter. Man, we had done so much work. New engine, new sails, new canvas, new bowsprit, and not to mention all the other new things like new electronics, new everything. Well, it was time to actually sail the boat. So we went sailing. Or so we thought. We waited for high tide and headed out of the channel on a nice, beautiful day to go sailing. But of course, the story never ends like that.
Let's go sailing. I have no other plans. I'm sailing! I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Once we got out of the channel, we were getting ready to set the sails when we noticed some dark clouds on the horizon. Needless to say, this is what we ended up with.
Don't worry, boss. It's just a little squall. They come on you fast, and they leave you fast.
Dad had a ball, and you would never know by the way he's sitting there smoking his cigarette. We were in 50-knot winds.
I think I'm gonna get my ass kicked, sir.
I don't think like that. Damn it to hell, don't go by the book. Think like a pirate. I want a man with a tattoo on his dick. Have I got the right man?
By a strange coincidence, you do, sir.
Dad was awesome. We did manage to get back to the marina safely, and within an hour, it looked like this. Virginia. Well, that concludes our Season 1 recap. Now we're going to head into the bilge and do an experiment. Open Thru-Hull versus the Slurper. Ever since we got the boat, we have had this oily gunk in the bottom of our bilge. We can't even see the bottom of the bilge. So I decided, with everything else done, it was time to clean it. And stay tuned, because at the end I open a Thru-Hull and flood the boat. I'm done on the bilge. In the bilge. Is it in the bilge? On the bilge? I don't know. All I know is I came out of the bilge looking like this.
I really hate this. Honey, are you okay?
Yeah, it should be fine. A little turpentine will do the trick.
Alright, so down in here is the bilge. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. That white thing down there is the bilge pump. It sits on this little platform, and it sits a lot higher than the bottom of the bilge is. So there's this little rod that comes up. I'm going to pull that whole thing out. Shut off the power. And then call my dad and ask him what he wants me to do with those wires. So this rod is sort of a platform that drops down, and then the bilge pump sits on it. So I'm going to take this out completely. It looks like just some flathead screws, and probably going to need a longer one to actually get down into the bilge, not just on top of that platform. I just want to clean this whole section up. So hold tight while I take out those screws. This is it. This is that rod. And hook twitch. Here we have the finished product. Dad and I liked this arm. We liked the way it secures the bilge pump to the bottom of the bilge, but it needed to be longer so it actually went to the bottom of the bilge. So we added 6 inches to it. We added a new bilge pump, float switch, hoses, and a good cleaning. And wires. Mission accomplished. Y'all ever do stuff and not tell your parents? I'm fixing to open the Thru-Hull and flood the boat. But don't tell Dad. Alright, so this is how this works. I've already loosened it. pull that plug. Woo! Hello. And here's the sonar piece. Give it a good little cleaning. Oops, hope that doesn't hurt it. Okay. Meanwhile, this is happening. And the first time I did this, or a few times I did this, it made me really nervous. And I think it would make any boater nervous. Because one thing the slipper does not like is not having I'm really letting it go now. Push that flapper down and really let the water in. You hear the slurper in the background letting it rip. That's the Thru-Hull wide open right there. Try to get you some video of that. Good light. So I'm flooding the boat basically. And what I want to know is how's that slurper going to handle it? I can hear it moving. It's not at full throttle now. It's pumping.
I left the Thru-Hull open and checked the slurper. I wanted to see just how much water it's pumping out.
So I was doing this experiment by myself, and I didn't have anybody to do a camera on each side. And I wasn't really satisfied with what I was seeing because I couldn't really tell if the slurper was keeping up, because here it kind of looks like it is. So I tried another experiment. For the second experiment, I flooded the bilge again for 30 seconds with the Thru-Hull open, and then I started the slurper and ran it for 30 seconds. Now the flapper being open, the running back and forth, all of those things were variables. But check this out. We're definitely out of the bilge. I've shut off the bilge pump for this exercise. And now I'm going to go turn on the slurper and see what we get out of a 30-second run. Now I'm going to fire up the slurper and see how it does in the same amount of time as the Thru-Hull was open. We have another 30 seconds here. I'm timing it. We got some stuff floating around. We're at 10 seconds now. Okay, we are at 20 seconds now. We are at half throttle. And we are at 30 seconds. I'm going to give it 10 more seconds because we have the flapper on. I'm just curious to see. And, alright, there we are. Hold on. I'm going to go shut it off and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and let it take it down the rest of the way. In conclusion, the slurper's not going to raise the Titanic. But it is an interesting device. I do like how it performed and think I'm going to enjoy tweaking that system. But wait, I have one more shitty update.
You look like you want to get something out, son. Oh my God!
Okay, so let's face it. Nobody wants to be that guy. Which means you either have to empty your tank or use a bucket or something else. So, our solution here on Bob, me and Dad decided to put in some composting toilets. And that's what this video is all about. First, you have to remove the old ones. Frankly, I've never done this before, but I just looked and saw where it was bolted down, and I took out those bolts. And then I saw where the hoses were connected, and I just cut those hoses and got rid of them. And then, honestly, that was pretty much it. And I just took it out. I tried to salvage as much as I could. The septic line I just pushed back into the closet until I can figure it out. But that little gray line right there, that's actually a saltwater intake. So I'm gonna shut off the Thru-Hull, which is actually back here. So I made sure the lines were still elevated so that everything drains. And now I'm just gonna pump out what's left in the toilet so I can remove the toilet the rest of the way. All right, so I got everything out. And there's these old screw holes. So I'm gonna get a sealant, a caulking or something to fill those up. All right, y'all. So here is the hardest part about putting in these composting toilets. You gotta put these brackets in. Once they're in, you set the housing for the toilet down on these brackets. And then it just drops in and out just like that. So here's the toilet. Now I'm gonna show you how I drop it in and screw it in place, basically. It was so easy that I had to go back and film this part because it went too quick. So hold tight. All right. So I've set the toilet in place. It comes with these little washers and screws. And again, the hardest part is just keeping track. And if you look down here, you get a little hole, and you literally just screw it in. Like that's it. One on each side. Alright, here's the other one. Again, you just make sure that the hole lines up. And then, again, boom, bada bing. Okay, hold on. And then you set the toilet in place. You got these little side latches here. That's what locks it in place. Okay. You want to make sure that you have clearance to open and lift it off. I opted to push it in this way so it is a little loose. But as you can see, this is the area where you put your compost, your peat moss, just natural peat moss with no fertilizer. Right? That is your urine container. You can just dump it. Again, put these in place, latched it down. It will last 6 months, if longer, if not longer. So I was a non-composting toilet person. So for me to convert is a big deal. And it might take a little getting used to, especially if you have guests, they might get a little weirded out. Your flushing mechanism, basically this is how you flush. You stir, and that stirs your dirt. So stir the dirt, dump your fluids, and call it. My dad's home alone and there's no power, so I'm gonna stick it on Bob. Snow covered Bob. dinghy sinking.
Other than you went underwater.
Hoping this works. Like, I'm in the snow. It was a bad storm. Lovely. The hardest part about using the slurper to bail the dinghy was making sure that all the water was getting to the mouth of the slurper, because I have a short hose with the check valve on it just at the base, so I needed to keep it really close to the water. So I had to turn and twist and move everything, you know, keep pulling the dinghy in and lowering into a puddle so that I could get all the water out. My takeaways for this are: the slurper needs a quick connect and a longer hose. Once the dinghy was taken care of and the dogs taken care of, I went grocery shopping. Got my groceries in a dock cart. Oh, it looks like a beacon in the middle in the darkness. Here's Bob. Oh man, it's cold. The wind is coming up off the water. Okay, well, that was exciting. I don't care. It was exciting. It's like, oh, it's windy and blustery. Even the dogs were excited. So I was glad now that I get to get all drenched and wet, and then change my clothes, get in my new fluffy stuff, get a blanket, and drink some coffee and eat donuts on Bob. How bad is that? That's like a great night. So have a good night. See you next time. Bye, y'all.